Hello Summoners, and welcome back to another ProGuides upcoming changes video. My name is Dan, and today I'll be going over some more planned changes that are coming up in patch 9.19. We did a part 1 of this video earlier this week, but a lot of things have changed in the PBE right now, and we decided to do another video to update you guys on what's new. Also, patch 9.19 is the patch that the World Championships is going to be played on, so there are a lot, and I mean a lot, of changes coming up. All the things we mentioned here can be found on the PBE right now or on the Riot dev boards, but please do keep in mind that nothing is set in stone and changes can be made before 9.19 hits the live server. The new changes will affect some of your favorite champions like Aatrox, Pantheon, Riven, and many others, so make sure to stay tuned for those. But before we get started, I want you to click on the link below and check out our website ProGuides.com. ProGuides is the best proven way to improve at League of Legends, and we post guide videos like this one every single day. We've been doing a lot more advanced content recently, and I'm sure you won't regret signing up. Also, guys, we have an effective coaching feature which lets you play and get coached by a pro. Trust me, you won't want to miss out on this because your friends will be absolutely stunned at how much better you've become at League of Legends. Now, with all that being said, let's jump right into the video. First things first, some of the new splash arts have been revealed since our previous video, which include Prestige Edition Valiant Sword Riven, the default Valiant Sword Riven, then Majestic Empress Morgana, then Splendid Staff Nami, onto Hextech Amumu, and lastly, we have Championship Rise. These skins look amazing, and I can't wait to try them out once they hit the Rift next week. I'm most excited about the Morgana skin because, I mean, she just looks so cool. Alright, let's jump into the balance changes. This video will be split into 2 parts. The first part will cover the changes that were updated within the time of this video and our previous upcoming changes video. And the second part will cover all the changes that remained the same. So if you haven't watched our previous video already, then you should watch until the very end. Alright, let's start with the new changes. Sylas. Despite receiving a barrage of nerfs within the past few patches, Sylas Jungle has managed to survive all the changes and continues to be a problematic pick in professional play. Not only is he extremely powerful, but he can adapt to almost every scenario and can also be a strong flex pick within 3 roles. For patch 9.19, the Riot Balance team are looking to gut him from the jungle to remove a layer of his flexibility. The original nerf intended for Sylas was to remove 7 armor at level 1, then nerf his armor per level from 3 to 2.5, and then buff his attack speed by a decent amount to compensate for these extremely heavy nerfs. However, it appears that Sylas Jungle has managed to stay relevant on the PBE due to the attack speed buffs, so the Balance team are removing those completely. In addition to this, his passive, Petrocyte Burst, will have its range reduced from 400 to 350, and the damage has been changed from 9 to 60, plus 100% of your AD and 20% of your AP on all targets with 50% of that damage to minions, to having the base damage completely removed, and the scaling will be 110% of your AD with 20% of your AP to all targets and 40% damage to all minions. This means that he is surely being removed as a jungler, so play him as much as you can. Not only that, but his stance as a mid laner and top laner is going to be affected significantly, because he will no longer be able to keep up against AD laners such as Renekton, Zed, Talon, and Qiyana. If these changes go through, then he will have some of the lowest base armor stats in the game, and will have no tools to fight against AD champions, because his E was recently changed into a magic shield. As soon as the Balance team saw even a sliver of light that Sylas Jungle would survive, they decided to pull the rug from underneath and are not allowing this to survive. Next up in the brand new changes, we have Riven. Riven's received a series of nerfs recently, which have actually impacted her stance in the meta. Although she's still a powerful pick during the mid-game, her early game became a lot more abusable by her bad matchups, and the Riot Balance team was planning to give her some massive buffs. The original changes that were planned for Riven was to increase her W scaling from 100% bonus AD to 130% bonus AD, and also to increase the scaling and minimum damage on her ultimate by 30%. However, due to the massive amount of backlash from the community, and even the Riven mains themselves, the Balance team decided to pull these buffs and are giving her some new ones. Firstly, her E, Valor, will have its cooldown buffed significantly from 14 to 10 seconds to 12 to 8 seconds. However, as compensation, her Q, Broken Wings, will have its cooldown increased by 1 second. These buffs are a lot more fair than the ones previously intended, but the community is still debating whether Riven even needs buffs in the first place. Let us know your thoughts about these Riven buffs and why you think Riot is buffing her. Aatrox recently received some heavy nerfs in patch 9.18 and has been struggling to keep up in the meta. It was kind of refreshing to not see him being locked in every single game, but it looks like things are going to change real quick, and Aatrox will become relevant in the meta once again. For patch 9.19, the Balance team have recognized that they over-nerfed Aatrox and are giving him a decent buff to help him out. His Q, the Darkened Blade, will have its damage against minions changed from 40% at all ranks to 40 to 70% depending on the champion level. These aren't big buffs by any means, but it'll definitely help him out during the mid to to late game. Aatrox will likely remain as a B tier pick next patch, but there is a chance that he makes it back up to the borderline A tier. Currently, one of the biggest issues is that his safety as a laner has been stripped away from him. He can no longer survive lane against those tougher matchups like Jace, Pantheon, Jax, and Camille, and struggles to draw pressure on the map against them due to his lack of wave clear. This change will help him out slightly, but we'll see if he's picked up again in professional play. Fiora was planned to receive some massive buffs in patch 9.19, and she's still receiving them. However, the Balance team have decided to change a few things to make her feel a lot smoother to play next patch. The original buff intended for her was to allow her Q to hit towers, wards, and plants, while also allowing her second part, the E, to critically strike towers. On the PBE right now, Fiora's ability to Q blast plants, vision plants, and honey fruits has been removed completely. They realized that this small change was almost unneeded and could create some awkwardness when it comes to hitting the blast plant. However, the other buffs are still planned to go through to the live server, so make sure you keep practicing her while you can. She will for sure be picked during the World Championships and also be a heavily contested pick in solo queue. Either get those bans ready or start learning her ASAP because she will bring you a ton of freelo. When his rework first hit the live servers, Pantheon actually struggled in the meta and felt like a subpar champion. However, he's received a lot of buffs ever since and has actually man-dropped his way into our S+ tier for our tier list. He's a really strong pick right now, and the Balance team have decided to nerf him by a reasonable amount. Firstly, his base magic resist has been lowered from 32.1 to 28. Next up, his empowered W will have its scaling changed from 150% at all ranks to 135 to 165% depending on the champion level. These changes won't really affect him too much, and he'll continue to be a really powerful pick in solo queue. If you've recently started playing him, then don't worry, because the changes will affect him only slightly. Annie recently received a mini rework on E ability, which now grants movement speed whenever she uses it. However, as compensation for these buffs, the Balance team did nerf this ability's damage reduction and cooldown to keep it a bit more fair for her counterparts. However, it does appear that Riot over-nerfed this ability in exchange for the movement speed, so Annie will receive a few buffs in 9.19. First, the movement speed bonus has been buffed from 25 to 50% to 30 to 60% depending on champion level. Next, the cooldown of this ability has been changed from 15 seconds at all ranks to 14 to 10 seconds. These changes will make Annie a lot more fun to play, and her kit will feel a lot more satisfying next patch. However, these are only minor buffs, so she'll likely be within the A or B tier for patch 9.19. Heimerdinger was planned to receive some buffs in patch 9.19, but the Balance team have decided to change them up a bit. The original buffs were to increase his base HP from 488 to 500, then his Q's AP ratio by 5%, and then his E's stun duration by 0.25. On the PBE right now, some of these changes have been reverted, and these are his new buffs. Firstly, his Q ratio will remain the same, from 30% to 35%. Then his ultimate plus Q ratio will also be buffed from 30 to 35%, and his E will have its stun duration increased by 0.25 seconds. I gotta say, these buffs make a lot more sense than the previous ones, and I'm glad the Balance team decided to change them last minute. Although they'll help him out a lot, don't expect him to be magically broken in the meta because he'll likely remain as a subpar pick. Next up, we have Shaco. The Shaco rework will not hit the live servers in patch 9.19, but his new kit has been revealed and will likely be available to play for patch 9.20. The overall goal of the Shaco rework is to make him feel more empowered to interact with the enemy champions early while reducing his late game power spikes. Firstly, his passive backstab will deal additional damage when hitting someone from behind. It'll also crit for 130% damage if you combine it with your Q, and combining this with your E will now do bonus AP damage and slow them for 20%. Next up, his Q will have its stealth duration increased from 1.5 to 4.5 seconds to 2.5 to 3.5 seconds. The cooldown of this ability has been buffed from 16 to 14 seconds to 12 to 10 seconds. The CD of Deceive will no longer be reduced by 2.5 seconds upon activating your passive, and the damage has been changed to AD scaling only and does 25 to 60 with 25% of your bonus AD. Next up, his W will now fire at all nearby targets instead of a single target only, and will do slightly less damage for the AoE amount. His E, 2 Shiv Poison, will be changed to magic damage, and it'll now do more base damage while also having the execute bonus changed from 0 to 50% based off of missing health to 50% flat for targets under 30% HP. Lastly, his R, Hallucinate, will have its boxes trigger immediately upon the clone's death, and will fire at multiple targets rather than just one. In addition to that, the damage ratios are decreased on this ability because it is a lot more reliable now. Now that all the new changes are out of the way, let's speed through all the other changes and minor adjustments planned for next patch. Karma will have her Q's AP ratio decreased from 60% to 40%. This nerf is intended to gut her from the top lane because it's been a problematic pick within the competitive scene. However, the nerfs will also affect her as a support even more because she actually relies on the AP scaling in that position. Tahm Kench will have his gray health conversion nerfed from 75% at all ranks to 30 to 100% depending on the champ level. Although Tahm Kench is super bad for solo queue, he is still one of the best supports for competitive play, and the balanced team are targeting his safety. Yuumi will have her Q nerfed this patch, and the slow on this ability has been changed from 20 to 80% to 20% flat at all ranks. In addition to that, the slow duration has been changed from 1.5 seconds to 1 second, but will no longer decay. These changes will affect her stance in the solo queue meta by a ton, but there is a small chance that pro players will still pick her in the World Championships. Gragas has been a heavily contested pick in the competitive scene and is being nerfed in 9.19. His W will have its cooldown nerfed from 5 seconds to 6 seconds, and the damage has been changed from 8% to 7% of max HP. These are very minor nerfs, and you'll continue to see them soon. Sejuani has also been a heavily contested pick in pro play and is being nerfed in 9.19. Her passive damage will be gutted from 10 to 20% to 10% flat at all ranks. This is a huge nerf to Sejuani, which literally cuts her passive damage by half. This might just be the nail in the coffin for Sejuani in professional play. Mordekaiser will have his shield generation increased from 30 to 35%. Having that 5% extra generation is nice, but it'll likely not do much for him when it comes to pro play. His kit is too easily counterable by professional players, and he is a subpar pick for the World Championships. Sion will have his W shield increased from 30 to 130 to 50 to 150. This is a great buff for Sion, which will help him out a ton. Not much to say about this other than good job, Riot. Ornn's passive will now allow him to level up items starting at level 12 instead of 13. Again, another great change from the balance team. Keep it up, guys. Rek'Sai is looking to receive a buff on her Q, which will now be able to hit towers with the empowered damage. In addition to this, her base armor will be increased from 33 to 36. This means that her early game jungle clear will become a lot healthier, and she can now pressure towers even harder. Xin Zhao will have his passive heal increased from 8 to 59 to 10 to 78, and the damage on his Q has also been buffed from 20 to 40 to 20 to 52. These won't magically make him broken or anything, but he will definitely be a strong pick next patch. Buffing the mid to late game on a champion who's focused around building early leads can actually have a huge impact on their stance in the meta. Graves will have his base HP increased by 4, then his mana increased by 3, then his mana regen increased by 0.1, and his base AD increased by 2. Not much to say about these. Zac has held a solid stance in the meta, but is looking to become even stronger next patch. His ult passive will now restore an additional 1/2/3% per blob, and his passive cooldown will now become pingable. TF will have his ease attack speed bonus increased from 10 to 30% to 20 to 40%, and the damage has been buffed by 10 at all ranks. This will help his on-hit build by a ton, and will likely push him into the S tier for 9.19. Veigar will have his ease cooldown buffed from 18 to 14 seconds to 18 to 12 seconds. This means that his late game will become a lot more safe, and he can provide better peel for himself during teamfights. Orianna will have her ultimate damage buffed significantly from 150 to 300 with 70% AP to 200 to 350 with 80% scaling. This is a massive buff, and you will surely see her being picked during the World Championships. Cassiopeia will have her ease empowered damage increased by 10 at all ranks. This means that she can chunk out her opponents even more after being hit by a Q. Great. Vayne will have the AD steroid on her ultimate buff from 20 to 40 to 25 to 55. Uzi is loving these changes. Ashe's Q will now be an auto attack reset, and the passive slow will be buffed from 15 to 30% to 20 to 30%. Blitzcrank will have his Q's range increased by 100, and his ultimate will now have 3 stacks instead of 2. So that's it for our upcoming changes video for patch 9.19. Let us know which change you're most excited about in the comments down below, and if you enjoyed watching this video, then please hit that like and sub button. Also, make sure to check out ProGuides.com if you want to see huge improvements to your rank right now. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Good luck in your next few games, and I'll see you out on the Rift.